Hello everyone, this is Case Ganem again doing a interview. I'm very lucky to have met Professor Farouk El-Baz, who is taking part in a symposium here in Ottawa, Gatineau, on the issue of sustainability, water and the environment. He is renowned for his work in this field, especially water resources, and has been involved with so many projects and achievements in the United States with NASA. And so, first of all, welcome, Dr. El-Baz.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Professor El-Baz, how long have you been in the United States?
Well, I actually immigrated to the United States in 1966, end of 1966, although I had already spent between 1961 through 64 as a graduate student in the U.S.
Okay, and so you hail from Egypt originally. So your languages are Arabic and English. And
yes.
What else? What else?
A little bit of French, a little bit of German, because I taught at the University of Heidelberg for a couple of years.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So what was your first degree in what?
And my first degree was a BA at Ain Shams University in chemistry and geology.
Okay.
And then I was appointed as a TA in geology at Asyut University.
Yes.
Where I spent a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I received a scholarship then to come to the United States. And I was at the Missouri School of Mines and Metallurgy, which is in Rolla, Missouri, in the middle of the country.
Yes.
And this is where I started my MS and PhD degrees. And I did my research at MIT. I took 1 year off from Missouri to go to MIT to do the research on certain minerals that I could not do in Missouri, so I did it at MIT. So I was there as a special graduate student at MIT, and then I received my PhD in 1964.
And what was the PhD on?
On mineral deposits.
Deposits.
Yeah, like lead and zinc deposits of Missouri.
Yes.
And the first potential job that I was offered was in Germany at the University of Heidelberg, because the professor that was headed the Institute of Mineralogy and Petrography knew about my work. I had discovered a new mineral assemblage in the lead belt of southeast Missouri, and they wanted to know about it, and because there are similar deposits in Germany.
You discovered a new
mineral assemblage, a certain cobalt copper sulfide that's associated with the galena and other minerals in that place. So he invited me, and he said, "We'd like to give you a couple of years of research here, and you can teach. We'll give you a salary, and you can do research with some people here." So I did.
And that was all in German.
That was all in German. Actually, I enjoyed it because of the fact that while a student in the U.S., I visited the most important mines in the country. I had a car for $200, and I took that with a couple of my friends and would roam around the United States to go visit mines. So I had samples from all kinds of mines in the U.S., and they wanted to do the same thing in Europe. So I knew that there are all kinds of fantastic mines, in the coal mines and the iron mines in Germany, and the phosphate and so on in France. And so I wanted to make that loop around the mines in Europe, so that I will have samples from all the important mines worldwide. And I did. And then I went to Egypt. I actually shipped at my own cost 4 tons of samples, rock samples, collected from all these mines. At my own cost, shipped them to Egypt. So I would go and find I had prepared myself to establish an institute for mineral deposits like no other institute in the world. I knew I could do it because I had visited all the mines. I had with me all kinds. I rubbed shoulders with the best geologists of my time. I was a member of the Geological Society of America. I communicated with all kinds of geologists in Europe, and so I was prepared to do it. And when I went to Egypt, I was assigned to teach chemistry in something called the Higher Institute of Suez. And I told the guys that I have a PhD in geology. How am I going to teach chemistry? And the man actually said, well, can't you just open a book, a chemistry book, chapter by chapter, and tell the kids? I said, no, I can't. It's not. So anyway, I was out of work for 1 year. I refused to take that job, and they refused to give me any other job.
Right.
So I left. I came to the West and then to
You left the country?
Yeah.
And what happened to all those tons of rocks?
I gave them to Ain Shams University, my alma mater in Egypt, so I gave it to them all.
Okay.
And so I came to the West and I started applying for jobs in the universities, in mining companies, in oil companies, you name it, everything else. And the first invitation for an interview came from NASA. And I went down to Washington, D.C. to interview, and they hired me. And I went on. I had absolutely no knowledge of the moon. I never took a course in astronomy, but I knew that a lot of people have had that knowledge, and my fellow geologists that I would be working with have had 6 years or 5 years of working hard with pictures of the moon, with astronomical observation, this and that, and they came fresh with knowledge about mines, which doesn't help them. So I studied very hard, and they did twice as much as they did their own work. And very soon I became kind of like one of them. And they trusted me to the extent that when they made a committee for lunar landing site selection,
Yes.
they elected me secretary of that committee. When it was time to train the astronauts in visual observation photography, NASA assigned me to that as the principal investigator, meaning the boss of the team, to do that job. And I had some 6 wonderful years with the Apollo program in selection of the landing sites and teaching the astronauts how to observe and how to take pictures. So it was wonderful. After that, I joined the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., and I spent 10 years establishing the Air and Space Museum. It's a wonderful museum. And I was the head of the Center for Earth and Planetary Studies at that museum. From there on, I joined a company for 4 years called iTech that was responsible for making the high technology imaging systems for the satellites. So I learned a great deal about these imaging satellites, what goes inside the machine itself.
Yes, but you were no longer with NASA.
I was no longer with NASA. I was actually making things for NASA.
Yes,
Yes, making instruments and satellites for NASA. And from there, I joined Boston University as the director of the Center for Remote Sensing, which is applying pictures from space to geology, archaeology, geography, and environment. And at Boston University, and I'm still directing that center to this day. It's almost 30 years.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because that was in your lecture, and through using that technique, I mean, obviously, it's not simply a question of very high density pictures. I mean, there's much more than that, because you said that you use radar and all sorts of waves in order to actually look underneath the surface of the Earth or the Moon or whatever, to find rivers and water reservoirs and all sorts of things. How does that work?
Now, we're basically using the technologies in all of our explorations. We're using photography that we learned about photographing the Moon. So we have instruments that actually take a picture of something that is lit by the sun. Yes. Just like the photographs we take here.
Reflection.
Yes. And then we used images that we used around Venus, because Venus has a very thick atmosphere you can go through it. So you have to use radar to photograph Venus. So it will go through the clouds and give you an imaging of the clouds. And we have used sensors that figured out the topography of Mars by sending radar images to bounce back, and we've done that. So we've applied all of this to the Earth. So
can I interrupt you? Ask you about by sending a radar beam and receiving reflection,
the echo.
You can tell whether you landed on a high mountain or on a low ground, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay. Because of that distance and the time it takes for it to come back.
In addition.
Yes.
Radar waves penetrate through sand because it's fine-grained and dry too fine-grained. It is smaller than the wavelength of radar. So the radar doesn't see it at all. So the radar wave goes right through the sand cover, which is fine-grained and dry, and then bounces back from the first rock layer, surface layer, beneath the sand.
That's
so now
very important.
And that is
fact.
exceedingly important in desert
Very
areas.
important.
Because you go to the desert areas and you look at this picture from satellites and you see sand, sand, sand for vast distances. But we have one radar strip and it will go right through the sand and shows you the topography before the sand ever came.
Yes.
And that was very important.
What if there is no rock and there is below the sand, for example? I suppose it has to be rock, but I mean, what if it was, say, lava or water? Would it also?
Yes, will give us something back. Yes, and we could figure out the grain size of the layer underneath. There may be something that is very fine grained soil, as opposed to blocky rock, as opposed to fractured rock. We will see all of that in the radar wave, in the radar image.
Yes, and so this is actually what you were showing us, the slides that you were showing
That's right.
This morning, that showed the underground water in like huge lakes of water right underneath.
Yeah,
how deep were those lakes of water underneath the surface of?
That can only be like 5 meters or something. It's no big deal.
Oh,
yeah. It is the sand cover is from a few centimeters to 5 to 10 meters. That's the sand cover.
Right.
So we really look at the surface here, and if the surface shows us that it was a low area and it was a lake, then the water would be way down below that lake surface for hundreds of meters.
Yes.
Yeah. So you interpret the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you try to find this water with conventional ways by just digging holes, in those wells or whatever, it would take 100 times longer, wouldn't it?
Not just 100 times. Because
you might never find it.
You will drill in areas that have no potential for water. So you better figure out where you are going to drill a well that will cost you a lot. So where do you put that investment?
Yes.
It is huge money, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So where do you put that location of the well?
But before you discovered this technique with radar, how did people find these underground?
That's it. Either by like that at all, or by people that will tell them I have this thing that will actually tell us where the water is, and it's nonsensical. But in the vast majority of the cases, it was just hearsay.
Yes.
They know that some Bedouin used to go to some place and dig well, it worked in some places and it didn't work in others.
Yeah, there was something called water diviners, something like that.
Muhammad, these are the people that will take this thing and to see there's something they hold a little piece of wood or metal, then they go around, and when it wiggles, then there may be water and so on. Sometimes it works we don't know why, but the vast majority it doesn't.
Okay, so let's change the subject a little bit now. You have many other interests. What are you doing now?
Right now
I
have 3 graduate students from PhD people that are just finishing the PhD. One from Azhar University that is working solely on the Sinai Peninsula. We want to find out where groundwater is in the Sinai Peninsula to develop it, because the Sinai has been forgotten completely during the past 50 years. And another one is working on the eastern desert in Egypt, in the middle of granitic rocks and high mountain ranges, but these mountain ranges have wadis or valleys, and these valleys, some of these valleys are controlled by fractures. And as I said in the lecture, these fractures can be the storage places for water. And the third one is working on a place that is southwest of Luxor and Aswan, where we have a vast area, nearly 1 million acres of land, that used to be a delta of a former river. Before the Nile was there was a river coming from the eastern desert going there and depositing both water and good soil there.
What, millions of years ago?
Over 1 million years ago. Yeah. And therefore, we have both water and good soil there, and we're finishing up the maps for this, and we provide all of this to the Egyptian government, and we publish it publicly in newspapers. All 3 topics have been published because it's important for the people to know.
Why do you think that it
Because
might
the
be
government
hidden?
sometimes the government sometimes cannot move enough fast enough, or the government would not. Because I supplied the government during Hosni Mubarak's time many proposals of many potentially good things, and they would say, thank you very much, or no, that wouldn't work. We don't think there will be water there. It took me the area that I showed you where there are now these circular irrigation farms. It took me 13 years to convince the Minister of Irrigation to drill just 1 well to test the theory. And he was a friend of mine. And he was a nice guy, graduated from the University of California, Davis, a good agricultural engineer, and a friend of mine. And it took me 13 years to convince him to drill 1. Until one day I was going into this office and he says, I will drill 2 wells to shut you up.
And I hope he did.
And now it is the largest area for wheat production in Egypt.
Wow.
Yeah.
So most of your work, from what you just told me, is to do with Egypt. Do you also deal with other countries?
Quite a bit.
In the
The
Middle
Arabian
East, for
Peninsula,
example?
yes. I've worked with the Libyans about the potential sources for the Great Man-Made River way back in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I did a great deal of work first in Kuwait, and then in the United Arab Emirates, where there was quite a bit of need for water. First we did that in Dubai, and then did that for Sharjah, and I did that also for all of Oman. We worked on a scheme whereby we visited all of Oman to say where the groundwater potential might be.
And was that fruitful?
Very fruitful, and yes, very fruitful in Oman, and in Sharjah too. There is a place where I showed you this picture where the sand was cooler because of rainwater in the mountain range. There are now 45 wells in that area.
In Sharjah?
In Sharjah, providing good fresh water.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's very important stuff that you've been doing. All right, so you have also done many other things. So I want to talk about the scholarships that you created for students and other people.
Oh, there
and
is
also about the issue of illiteracy that you've been dealing with.
Good.
So let's start. What would you like to tell me about?
I will tell you about the scholarships is because of the fact that I really believe in the new generation of Arabs in general. I realize, I personally believe that all the mess we see today throughout the Arab world is because of the former generations, including mine first. I published a paper. The title was Generation of Failure. And the first line was, my generation has failed completely in satisfying any of the hopes of the Arab people. And I really believe it. That myself and people like me of my age and the generation that followed me are all because we didn't really give a damn. No, not give a damn. We didn't do the right things. And each and every one of us would say, I did, and I found, and my ideas and my such. I never really gave the younger generation an option to develop their abilities and so on. And I think that the younger generation should have the responsibility. Even if they make mistakes, they will learn from it, the way we did. So let them learn, give them. So
I'm very happy to hear this from you, because I'll tell you what, I do the same. I'm very critical of my people who are also the Arabs, not in Egypt, but other places. And I keep telling people that I'm very critical to the point of being maybe annoying. But it's because I care about them.
Yeah.
And you are, seems to me, doing exactly that.
Yes, absolutely. So I thought that we should encourage the younger generation. That's why I've started these scholarships.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's the Geological Society of America that issues this scholarship, so it's something highly respectable, not Farouk El-Baz. No, it is the Geological Society of America that's doing that. And I subsidized it himself, and they will do it for 2 people every year. And that is in the contract that I gave with the girl, a man and a woman, because I feel that women have been neglected in the sciences for too many decades now. So and women should have just as equal rights. So I said not one
Male.
prize a year. No, but 2 prizes a year, one for a male student and one for a female student. And the other one about education is that the illiteracy, when I was young, that was also one of the failures of my generation, is we had something like 25% of people in Egypt were illiterate. And we felt very bad, and we thought that we should do that. And every student that has already learned, and every student that should be able to teach a few of them. So we thought that we should be able to eradicate illiteracy in Egypt. This was one of the goals that we had. Okay, illiteracy now in Egypt is over 50%. Illiteracy among women in Egypt is 63%. That is a disaster.
Yes.
It is terrible.
Yes.
The woman is the mother. How could the woman be illiterate?
It's as bad as Yemen.
It is worse. It is dreadful because it's increased from 20-something to 60-something. So disaster. So I thought to myself, well, maybe the younger generation can do better than we did. So I thought that we're going to start at the universities in Egypt, all the universities, because there are lots of, every big town now has a university. And I said to the students, those who have learned must teach others. Each one of you would go to a factory, to an area, to your own village, whatever it is. Make a group and go and teach people how to read and write, because it is your responsibility. You had it. The state provided you with that ability to read and write. You should then turn over and do this and that, and made a foundation, or called it the Foundation for Youth Education. And their job is those who learn must teach.
Great. It's like a contract.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Just finally, what is your interest in poetry, if any?
Well, actually, your brother is the one that got me interested in poetry. I have known him for years, from the first trips that I made in the Arabian Peninsula in 1974. Before you were born, maybe it's 1974. And he introduced me to some poetry, and he actually knew about the poets of the Arabian Peninsula, the old ones, and he would recite some, and he would tell me what does that mean?
You mean like Tarafa bin al-Abd?
Yes, yes.
Jahiliyyah?
And I would say these words. You know what? I would know some things and not know the other words because of it's not my season. And so he began to kind of play games with me then and show me some of his own. This was at the very beginning when he started poetry. So I always say that it was Shahab Ghanim, the one that introduced me to poetry.
But you enjoy
very much so.
Poetry.
I read it very much, and I was on the plane. I was reading a book by Munira Al-Ghadiran, a Saudi woman, about Bedouin women poetry in Arabia. And some of these things are easy for me to swallow because of your brother, because of what I learned from him.
Well, great. I hope you enjoy reading my book of poetry when you have time. I know you're very busy.
Thank you.
But I really can't thank you enough for giving me this very, very precious interview,
Thank
Professor
you very much.
Farouk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.